Welcome into Gamecock Central Radio Live from the back porch on Gervais Street here in downtown Columbia. I'm Chris Clark. Thanks to everyone for listening to us tonight. We got a good show planned for you tonight. If you're listening to us on delay, on download, either through iTunes or on GamecockCentral.com, go ahead and make plans to come out and join us next week. We're at 1616 Gervais Street. Again, on the back porch. They've got parking here on the parking lot. Come get yourself some food, some drinks. For those of you listening to us live, we appreciate it. But you still got plenty of time to come out and join us. We'll be here from 8 to 9. Again, at the back porch, come get yourself some food, some drinks, hang out with our panel. We got a good panel for us tonight, led by Mr. CJ Driggers, photographer extraordinaire, road warrior, and Aiken, South Carolina native. We've also got beat writer extraordinaire. I just came up with a nickname for him, the feature, Ron Aiken.
Hey, I'll take it.
Hello.
I will take that nickname every day of the week. It's,
Chris Wellbaum running the board tonight behind the scenes. Thank you for everything you do, Chris. We may be joined by Alyssa Lang here in a few moments, is the rumor on the street. We got a lot to talk about tonight, but first I want to let you guys know we want to get your questions tonight. Send in your questions, Gamecock football, recruiting, whatever. We'll be glad to get to them here on the air. Just send them in. Let us know what you want to know and who you want to answer them, or if you want us all to discuss them, then let us know that. A couple ways you can do it. Hit us up on Twitter at Gamecock Central. Mention us there. Get us your question. You can also email GCR Live at GamecockCentral.com, or we can have you call Ron Aiken's cell phone.
Yeah,
we're going to give that out.
I will happily give that number out. It's 555-1224.
You know what's in the bathroom at the art bar? So
yeah, you put it there. Thank you. Thank you for that.
If we had phone lines, they would have lit up with women requesting Ron Aiken's
number. Yeah, that's right. I don't want to know what CJ Driggers does in the bathroom at Art Bar. I'll leave that to the speculation of our listeners.
You know, in the immortal words from the Van Halen video, Hot for Teacher, I don't feel tardy, as Alyssa Lang steps in.
Hello, Alyssa.
Gamecock Central Radio Live.
How are you guys tonight?
Fashionably late.
Well.
Sorry, I'm a little late.
No problem. Guys, we want to get into some Gamecock football. We're in the midst of a bye week. South Carolina defeated Vanderbilt on Saturday, 10-point game. We're going to touch on that a little bit. We're going to talk about maybe some storylines during the bye week. Of course, the Gamecocks are off this weekend, and we'll play at UCF next weekend. Again, get your questions into us at Gamecock Central on Twitter, GCR Live at GamecockCentral.com. We'll be glad to take all of those questions. But let's start out. Let's quickly just go over the Vanderbilt game. Ron Aiken, a couple standouts, maybe standout players, a couple things you saw that stood out, maybe a couple of disappointments for the game briefly.
Yeah, sure. Right off the bat, the first thing that stands out is the way that the offense played. I mean, they came in with a purpose. Connor Shaw said he was going to come fling the ball around, and he did. I think his passing game was outstanding. They didn't have to have a big game from Mike Davis and Brandon Wallace. They got just enough, but, man, they were able to move the ball. They looked like they could score at will. It appeared, for all intents and purposes, it was going to be, 35, 45-point explosion. They raced out to such a lead and did it in such convincing fashion, manhandling, really, the Vanderbilt line. And that's kind of where the game was won right there and salted away early. They could do what they wanted to, and so that was super impressive to see Connor Shaw come out and have the kind of commanding game that he needed, especially coming off the loss at Georgia. So I think nothing but encouraging signs from the offense, especially when you look at the number of yards they put up, the second most in the Steve Spurrier era. I'm still waiting to see some second-half scoring. I want to see them get on top of a team they should beat and just throttle them. I want to see just domination in the second half where you keep the gas on the entire game. There might be different reasons for that, but you are talking about 3 games in which the offense has scored 7 points, 6 points, and 7 points. And so I'd like to see some more second-half scoring. I don't know that that's necessarily related to fans leaving early or not, but I know that that's something they would like to see happen as well. Really, disappointments were just kind of special teams related. You know, you don't like to see a fumble. You like to see fair catches when they should be fair caught. And I'd like to see more yards back on kind of the return game. But I think defensively they answered some of the questions they needed to answer. They simplified some things and got the guys that they had in position to just go play football. And with a supremely tested by a Vanderbilt offense? Probably not. And they gave up a few yards in the second half, rushing that they might regret and look a little harder at. But I think all in all, you take that win. It's a division win, and so I think you'll take that every day of the week and be happy you get a bye week to kind of iron out some more of those things. But offensively, I think it was a lot to be proud of.
CJ, looking at the sidelines, what did you see? Were there any changes between the first half? Gamecocks are up 28-0. Then the second half, special teams gaffes. Vandy's got a short field 3 times for 3 of their 4 scores. Any change in body language, shock, anything like that?
Yeah, the team looked too relaxed. They got the big lead, and everybody relaxed. The players didn't seem as aggressive. They weren't as attentive, probably to the coaches' signals on the sidelines. And they just didn't seem to play as hard. And, of course, Vandy changed things up a little bit with the Wildcat and whatnot. But, everybody just kind of let down a little bit. It was a big blowout lead. And, I don't know, it was just one of those things where you didn't feel like a sense of urgency on the field.
Yeah. Alyssa, what's your take from the game?
I know that I was very, very happy to see Connor Shaw, like you said, air the ball out a little bit more. I was in the press conference on Tuesday or Wednesday last week, I believe it was, when Spurrier said, I just wish he would throw a little bit more. And I was really surprised. I don't know what Spurrier finally said to Connor Shaw, but Connor Shaw looked really good. And, you pretty much said, Ron, everything that I was going to say Connor Shaw-wise, but disappointment-wise, I can say as a student, oh man, watching the second half of that game and watching ESPN pan over the student section several times, I was disappointed, to say the least.
What is the word around campus? You're still a student, you're on campus. Have you talked to anybody that gave you an explanation for, is it just, hey man, we got to go tailgate, we got some partying to do, the game's over, we think, or whatever?
It seems there has been a lot of talk, at least people that I talk to, being in, student sports media at school. There was an article written by one of our newspaper writers, Rickson Lane, who I think got over 16,000 hits on the internet, something like that. And that caused a lot of controversy around campus. I did mention to some people, friends of mine, who left early, and I said, I don't get it. You're there. South Carolina is never going to be taken seriously as a football program if their students are leaving at halftime of an SEC game. And I was told that at this school, drinking comes first and football comes second, is what I was told.
No.
So, surprise, but...
We were going to bring this up a little later in the show, but since we kind of went to this real quick, I went to Carolina 88-91, and back during that time, USC was not very good. And the only thing you had to look forward to was the tailgate. And by the way, didn't win a whole lot of games on the field, but we never lost a tailgate. That was back during the Tally-Ho days. I don't think you guys remember the Tally-Ho, but where Seawells is now used to be a large fenced-in area called Tally-Ho, and that's where all the students, specifically underage students, went to go to tailgate. But that was the big thing. The game was an afterthought. So I can't really understand nowadays, you would think there'd be a culture change with them winning versus back in our day, we didn't have a whole lot to look forward to. I witnessed a lot of bad football when I went to Carolina. Ron, when did you go during your student days? What years was that?
I graduated in 93, so I also saw some bad football. And I give people credit. They would show up and buy tickets and come, but, that's leaving in the third quarter, leaving after halftime, that's always been a criticism. And I'm a little bit more of the mindset that I'm not so harsh a judge on people's personal decisions with what they do with their time. They bought a ticket. They came. If somebody wants to leave, that's their own personal decision. I don't get up in arms about people leaving early. Maybe if you play more exciting football in the second half and score more than 7 points, maybe they stick around. Maybe if there's, bad football, maybe that's a reason people leave, and that's understandable to me. So I'm a little easier on the fans that left. I don't strike such a hard line and just rage against the evils of somebody choosing to go do something else besides sit on those aluminum bleachers, which, by the way, are not that comfortable.
You're not supposed to sit down at all in the student
Well, there you
section.
go.
There is no
that is a good
sitting in the
answer.
student section. Yeah.
Well, I will say this, having been to all SEC stadiums covering the team, there are 3 stadiums that really stand out as far as student sections showing up early and being vocal and staying to the end. LSU.
Oh, that would be
LSU, I mean, you walk in 2 hours before the game. As a photographer, we walk on the edge of the field. You have to walk around the end zone by the student section to get to their crappy photo room. It's basically a closet with exposed plumbing and whatnot. But anyway, don't let me get into that. But you get harassed by the students as you walk in 2 hours before game time, and there's several hundred painted up and bonkers. Auburn has excellent participation. Now, they're all dressed in coats and ties and dresses and whatnot, but they've got a real healthy student section that's there early. In Florida, for the most part, has a pretty lively student section that's vocal and they're early. And of course, those three teams have a lot of wins, and there's a lot of tradition there. And I'm sure there's a lot of peer pressure to stay because that's what their dad did or uncle did or older brother or sister did. But compared to USC, it's like night and day.
Yeah, those are three storied programs, and I would agree with you 100% on the LSU. I was so impressed with how early it just filled up, maxed out. I mean, it was full. Nowhere, everybody, there's still ushers having their little pregame briefings. This is not even remotely close to when the game time, and they are fully in force, in their seats, fired up. And they stayed that way throughout the entire game until the fourth quarter, until the last thing rang. So it is impressive when you see a student section bring that much energy. And some of the occasions that we've had the best environments at South Carolina from the student section has been a huge part of that, to create that. And do they have a responsibility to do that at that same level every time? Will there be ups and downs? I can sort of live with the ups and downs. It's still South Carolina versus what LSU's been able to accomplish, and maybe that's one of the steps you take to get there. But I don't know what the answer to that is. If it's more of a concerted effort that's by the student body, because they have different sections in the LSU group, and they have the Chinese bandits guy wearing those things, and you've got the little guys with the cross on, and it's a very concerted and dedicated and directed effort. And I don't know what it would take to get the South Carolina any better besides maybe just continued success.
We got a question that just came in, guys. Cedric Cooper, the coaching staff told us recently, is going to be moved, or at least get a look at Mike linebacker as opposed to Will linebacker. Mm-hmm. So Michael wants to know what kind of impact he'll have. If you don't mind, I'll give my take on it real quick. Cooper's a guy who was projected to start at the weak side, at the Will linebacker spot going into this season, and was projected to be the starter, was going to be one of the veterans, even though he's not that experienced on South Carolina's defense. Coming off a torn ACL last year, looked completely healthy, looked good. Then he hurt his elbow, had to miss several other games, wasn't able to practice as much, so he was sort of behind the eight ball in preparation. So he's been ready, but he hasn't played lately. So the staff has not gotten as much production from the Mike linebacker spot. TJ Holloman, Kawan Lewis, they haven't gotten as much production, so they're moving him over there. I think Cooper's got a little bit of leadership capability. I think he's got the ability to come out and make some more plays for him. Looking at those linebacker spots, I think if you had to say a weak link, I think that has been it. And so I think they're just trying to make a move to get some more playmaking ability on the field.
I agree with that 100%. And also you're doing it for depth reasons. Jonathan Walton, a guy that they had been using effectively there, gets hurt. I think it was maybe on the opening kickoff against Vanderbilt, and so now you're down to you already had a backup to Cooper to start, and Marquise Roberts, who's come in and done a fine job. But they're looking for some playmaking at that Mike position behind Kawan Lewis, who has a lot of tackles, but it still can kind of get swallowed up in the play sometimes. And again, with Ced Cooper, you're talking about a guy who's physically impressive and who has been around the program. He's a third-year sophomore, so he's got the experience. Now, I talked to Coach Kurt Botkin yesterday and was asking him specifically about him, and he said, missing a month of preseason practice hurt him. Knowing where to get his eyes, knowing where to get lined up, all those kind of things make a big difference. And so they're eager to get him back, and probably by the time Central Florida comes around, I think you'll see him on the field a lot more.
Ron, you've mentioned twice now about the physique of Cedric Cooper.
He's an impressive man.
Do you have a man crush on him?
I can support Ron's statement and say that I've seen him as well, and he's very solid. Yes, he's a solid guy.
and I've got a little anecdote to pass along too. We were told, talking to Joe Connolly, the strength and conditioning coach over the summer, if if you remember, Jadeveon Clowney made a list that Bruce Feldman puts out every year called the Freaks List, basically about some guys that are physical freaks. They can do things that really nobody else can do. And Joe Connolly said that he thinks Cedric Cooper could make that list next year. You know, he's got, like you guys said, the physique. He's athletic. He runs 4.5 in the 40. He's a strong kid. So it'll be interesting to see now that he's finally healthy. He's primarily been a special teams player at Carolina. Hasn't pulled down a lot of snaps at linebacker. So if he can get out there, you know, what can he do? And I think the bye week and then the game prep going into UCF is going to give him a chance to sort of, you know, get his legs under him and figure out what he's doing. And then we'll see, you know, if his ability can take over from there.
And they try to cross-train all those guys anyway, and so they still anticipate him getting some snaps at the weak side, at the wheel position too, but they want to work him into that rotation, again, especially considering the fact that you've got a little bit of an injury, a shoulder injury to Jonathan Walton. And those freshmen, even though they're playing, they still make a lot of mistakes. Walton, Sky Moore, and Lorenz Bryant, who they like his enthusiasm, but he still finds himself kind of out of position a lot, just from an experience standpoint.
And I want to say something, too. Thanks to Chris Wellbaum over here. He's trying to do a great job on the board because, believe it or not, there's road construction on Gervais Street.
It sounds like a Transformers fight going on outside.
And it's going on in the background. He's doing the best to control that background humming noise or vibration noise. But we got a question from Michael, and please keep submitting questions to us. What role did field position play in Vandy's comeback? Chris?
Huge. I mean, Vandy had 4 scores. The only score in which they drove the field, I think it was from their own 17, they kicked a 54-yard field goal right before the half. The other 3 scores come in the second half from the 1-yard line, from the South Carolina 19-yard line, and from the South Carolina 49-yard line. So when your special teams, and one of them, of course, was a pick by Dylan Thompson, run back to the 1, the other 2 were special teams mistakes. You're giving your defense that short of a field, it makes it a lot tougher. You know, if Vanderbilt's putting together 75-yard drives or having to go 75 yards to score, I'm not sure they put up 25 points. They did have a lot of success in the Wildcat. That's a concerning issue going forward. I charted out the plays. I think they ran the Wildcat 14 times, 6.5 yards a carry. That's not good. And they had, I think, 3 or 4 runs over 15 yards. So they had a lot of trouble stopping it, and that was the biggest part of that sort of attempted comeback. But field position is huge. You got to put it in context, I think.
How much of that do you attribute to the inexperience of the linebackers? You know, some of that would have been snuffed out by Shaq Wilson and the senior linebackers last year would have snuffed out. They were more predictive and stuffed runs. And from the field, what you're seeing is that the linebackers are reactive. And when they're reactive, they're out of position, they're a half step behind, and they're tackling guys from behind instead of hitting the front of their jersey.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina was stacking the box against the Wildcat. It wasn't like they were all sitting back 15 yards and say, come at us, you know. But when you've got your 3 linebackers, and especially the 2 that play in the middle, they're getting sucked in, they're getting out of position, they're missing their run fits, their alignments, and then things pretty much get out of whack. And then Vanderbilt adds this counter step and everything, and everybody's just sort of confused at that point. So, you know, if I'm Vanderbilt's coaches, you're probably kicking yourself for not putting it in earlier. So that's definitely an issue that needs to be corrected going forward. And it's not only against the Wildcat. You know, your run fits and things like that, those are things that young linebackers typically struggle with. And they struggled with it against Georgia, too. So it's got to get better.
Yeah, the delay handoff against Georgia was clearly evident. They would see the snap of the ball and just run into somebody. The running back would have a little delay, see a gap, and burst through the hole. You know, you just hope that throughout the season the linebackers learn from their mistakes, watching film, and play smarter. You know, they're playing hard. They're not playing smart. Now, you know, that will come with time.
And consistency is a big issue. That's another thing that Kurt Botkin mentioned. They were pleased with how they performed in the first half, but in the second half, I think, like you had said, they got a little lethargic, a little lazy, and they're not as alert with their calls, getting them off the sidelines and being in the right spots to fill those gaps. And I think that accounted for a lot of those big gashes that you saw, some of those longer runs out of that Wildcat formation, which I think it looked as if at least that Vanderbilt kind of turned to out of desperation because they couldn't move the ball. They couldn't get a first down, you know, in that first half. And so they were trying to find anything that worked. And then suddenly that worked a lot probably better than they thought. And then, again, you have the benefit of the turnovers and the ridiculously short fields. And all of a sudden Vanderbilt's in a game with a chance late to pull within 3 points that they have no business being in. And if it's not for a Jimmy Legree interception that allowed a lot of people to exhale that game. It's a rout.
Well, they cannot blame the weather because it was perfect, much like tonight here in downtown Columbia. Perfect weather.
Get your questions to us on Gamecock Central. Our Twitter account is at Gamecock Central, GCR Live at GamecockCentral.com. Sort of try to close out Vandy. Alyssa, any more thoughts on Vandy from what you saw?
Honestly, I was impressed with them in the first half. Obviously, offense looked great. Watching the second half, it was kind of like, oh, okay, this was too good to be true. Here's Vanderbilt. Here's South Carolina again. You guys pretty much hit on everything, field position, defensive-wise. Spurrier did say Vanderbilt can move the ball against us, and we know they can, and they eventually did. Jimmy Legree, he was the make or break at the end there with that interception. Just at the end of the day, I wish we had a full stadium for the entire game. But
now, from my point of view, I couldn't see the interception. How much of that was a poorly thrown ball due to a rush throw, and Jimmy Legree actually jumping the route and getting there before the receiver?
It was. It wasn't a great throw, but that's what Legree does best. And that's why I think we were so confused in the Georgia game when we see Legree. Of course, Victor Hampton missed the first half. He's similar to Legree in that they're both physical players. They're best when they're up at the line of scrimmage, jamming guys, getting in their face, being physical with them. And when you're at the 5-yard line, you got a short field. Receivers can't run. They don't have a lot of space. And so Legree, he really showed in the preseason he's really good at jumping routes, reading guys on short routes, being physical. He's got good size for his position, and then he was able to jump the route. So it wasn't the best throw, and I think that was a freshman that the ball was getting thrown to. Looked like he slipped a little bit. Actually, Sky Moore's teammate from high school, so he is a freshman, and he slipped a little bit. But Jimmy made a really great play. I think he has to get a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, I agree.
we have another question from Michael. He wants to know, will Clowney and Sutton's injuries slow them in games?
Yes. I mean, how can it not? You know, and especially when they're not practicing every day and you're not going full speed. When they say that they're both kind of day to day in practice the rest of the season, that concerns me. That's a sphincter tightener. That's not what you want to hear, coming out of those things.
What was that?
Well done.
That's just not something that it's not great news. You'd like to hear different things besides that, and especially from guys that I don't know. You just want to see maximum effort from all the time, and with the season that was set up for Chaz Sutton to have, knowing if you can beat your guy one-on-one, you can make play after play after play. And with Clowney, forcing the issue in his direction, you've got to have those other guys beat their man one-on-one. And when you're not getting that to happen regularly enough, then you've got problems that are very difficult to solve, especially when all they have to do is just run away from one guy towards everybody else, and you're just going to see that over and over again. And so going forward, you'd rather them not have those issues than have them, especially when the depth, it's I wouldn't describe the depth between Clowney and Chaz Sutton and the guys behind them as a Grand Canyon. It's not that wide, but it is a national park. It's large.
That's a fantastic comparison right there.
I like that. Bye week. I mean, speaking of injuries, bye week, it's a good time for one. Not super banged up, but with injuries like Sutton and Clowney where they're not really going to get better during the season, they just sort of have to manage it. It's a good time for them to heal up, take a week off, stay off the wheels, so to speak. Mike Davis has a slight ankle sprain, but he'll be fine. Victor Hampton, he's been banged up for a couple weeks now.
Kelsey Quarles, the same way he's been missing practice and practicing in a yellow jersey again with kind of the various dinged up is the response we get in terms of what's wrong with him. And it's ideal actually this bye week for what they have. Yeah,
and besides resting up for the bye week, what are the things that South Carolina needs to take this time to do? They're still practicing this week up until tomorrow. So what kind of questions need to be answered going into UCF? We won't get too much into the UCF game because we'll cover that next week. But they're 3-0. They haven't played a great schedule. They played Akron, I think, FIU, Penn State was the best team they played. But they're a capable team. They can score. It's in Orlando. not an easy game. So, I mean, what kind of things in general does South Carolina have to focus on besides getting healthy?
I'm still waiting for some leadership. DJ Swearinger isn't the player that Jadeveon Clowney is. Nobody would make the argument that he is. But by the same token, Jadeveon Clowney is nowhere near the leader that DJ Swearinger was. And that's just a fact. And when you have a superstar talent, you need some superstar leadership. And if there's not that level of leadership, who else are they going to look to do that? And I think that leadership vacuum that we saw kind of around the edges of against Georgia, and it got patched up a little bit, I think there needs to be some conversations with those frontline guys, the Chaz Suttons, the Kelsey Quarles, the Jadeveon Clowneys, to really just say this is our season. If we want to have the kind of year that we want to, that we're capable of, we need to be the ones to do it, get each other's faces, and bring those other guys up. I was talking to Adrian Morales today, the two-time national champion, and he said when a superstar looks at you and says, come on, man, we can do this, you feel 10 feet tall. And when they don't, and some other guys trying to tell you, you don't listen. It's just that simple when you're talking about chemistry on a team. And this is coming from a guy that was on the best chemistry teams that I ever saw in my life, the 2010 and 11 baseball national championship. And so I give him credence to what he says. And so I'd like to see some of that togetherness and leadership come together on the defensive side so that they can just shut things down. And then that offense can beat about anybody right now.
USC has a chemistry team? Hey, talking about Mike Davis, again, just, he's got such a plain name. And unfortunately, we had a Mike Davis prior to him, who he's already surpassed, I think, everything the previous Mike Davis has done. Mike, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But,
he's already written down like 3 questions, Michael, earlier.
The guy needs a nickname, though. His name's like Joe Vanilla, Mike Davis. So, I don't know, Mike Dynamite Davis. You got any ideas? I mean, Dynamite Davis.
That first suggestion was pretty good for Mike Dynamite Davis.
Yeah, Dynamite Davis. Because watching the game last night, and for some reason it just seems it's Tuesday before I get to watch the game. His acceleration is unlike any running back USC has had since Boo Williams. If you remember way back before Boo got in trouble and kicked off the team, he was turbo. I mean, he could go from 0 to 100 in 2 steps.
And he was about as tall as this microphone stand, and that was kind of one of his handicaps. But he was fast when he was left open.
And he had a good name, Boo.
Mm-hmm. I think Mike is sort of like Deuce Staley. Can anybody else see that? Because he's short, he's sort of wide, he's got the breakaway speed. I mean, remember Deuce's run against Georgia several years ago. I mean, they sort of watch those two. They sort of look similar. I would vote for Mike. I would vote for Mike Diesel. That sounds like a bad rapper, though.
But Diesel sounds like a big tractor that's slow. Dynamite sounds like Cabal.
Diesels can go.
Yeah, well, they can.
They got power.
They've improved the performance over the years. But
let's talk about diesel engine performance over the years.
On the manufacturing industry for diesel engines.
But Dynamite, just has an explosive sound to it. And he can explode through the line and gone. Hey, all right, I won't suggest any more nicknames.
That's my master's thesis, diesel engine performance from 1979 to 1995.
They have improved. If you've driven one recently, they got a lot better acceleration. Okay, we've come to the point where it's halftime, and 2 of us get a break, and I want to ask Ron Aiken to stay because it's going to be the Ron and CJ show for a couple minutes here. Ron Bowers, Danger is his middle name, is going to give us a sample of some of his wares here at the back porch. Now, I will say this. Tonight is the most dynamic, diverse crowd we've had in the 3 weeks we've been here. And it's not just a bunch of guys. It's some good-looking patrons here.
That's right. We've had a heck of a happy hour, and we're pretty glad that they're here for y'all, too, because we want to have a good crowd while you are doing this show here, and a good crowd all the time. But I actually cooked up some fried pickles literally moments ago, and I don't mean to toot our own horn, but do you like fried pickles, CJ?
How did you know my mom used to drive a pickle wagon? No.
Is that what you call it, going to bed with your dad?
Yeah. Whoa. Mom, if you're listening, I really apologize for that. Oh, my goodness. That went horribly wrong.
The rest of the show.
Yeah. You might be suspended, Ron. Wow, that threw me off kilter. Yes, I do like fried pickles. I will try and taste one. Ron?
Well, I would have
You don't deserve one now, but go ahead and give him one.
There you go.
I actually write a food column.
Well, we don't like to toot our own horn around here, but I would have to say, my opinion and many others' opinions, that we have the best fried pickles in town. We hand bread them. We don't do that frozen stuff. So, I love these fried pickles. That's why I made them for y'all and brought them out here.
Let me try another one.
They are very, Ron, no, dead serious, they are very good.
Thank you.
So often what you get is the pickles are too thin.
Oh, yeah.
And they're either overbreaded or underbreaded, and they end up soggy.
Yeah.
And so it's tough to get them crisp.
No one likes a soggy fried pickle.
Nobody likes
that
a
is
soggy
for
fried
sure.
So those are very good.
Nobody can critique a pickle in your mouth like Ron Akers.
That's exactly. You got that right.
Well, we appreciate y'all being here, and we hope next week. I think we're going to try to pull out the homemade pulled pork that we have for y'all. We might try to do a little taste for y'all every time, so that we can give everybody out there an opinion from a couple of y'all that about what our food's actually like without me actually tooting our own horn.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Bring it on.
Nothing like sampling it for real. And then, some point before the end of the season, we need the Bond Rudd, super nachos, the Gamecock Central nachos.
We're working on that. We're working on that every day. But I just feel like for y'all, we're going to have to make some kind of very seriously supreme nacho. And by the time that the Clemson Tigers, can I even say that on the radio?
Yes.
Do we talk about Clemson?
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
How about the team that shall not be named?
Yeah, up in Pickens. By the time they come to town, we're going to have those nachos ready for y'all. And I hope who's that guy that you talk about? We're going to try to name that after.
It rhymes with Bond Rudd.
Okay, Bond Rudd. Well, we're going to make the Bond Rudd nachos, and we're going to have those ready for y'all by the time Clemson comes around.
Well, for him, they're going to have to be sloppy.
Well, we appreciate y'all being here, and glad y'all like the fried pickles. We hope
outstanding.
And maybe you can go bribe the construction crew with a cold beer to stop for the next 30 minutes so we can finish our show.
They're doing some serious work out there.
Loosening my intestines over here. It's like just.
Well, we appreciate y'all being here, and I just want to say again, we're the back porch on Gervais Street at the corner of Pickens and Gervais.
No, wait a minute. You said we, and I met your brother. Your brother works here, right? I mean, he's like a ghost. I mean, I saw him at the very beginning, and I haven't seen him since. You're doing all the work. You're catering to the people at the bar.
I'm glad you said that. I'm going to take that one back home with me, and that one's on the radio. That's been documented.
Yeah, where is he?
No, really, he does. He works very hard, and he puts a lot of time into it. Luckily, I have a little bit of time away from school that I can come out here and help him out. So, but we're in the heart of the city. We hope anybody that comes from out of town for the home games comes and sees us. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Backporch1616, and search for us on Facebook on the Back Porch on Gervais.
Yeah, you got a pretty righteous Facebook page. I like that.
We do like that. We have a guy who does our Facebook page, and he's very good at what he does, and we appreciate that.
So, hey, Chris Wellbaum, would you like to try one of these pickles?
Go ahead, try one of those.
Come on, you're not talking.
Oh,
you
gotta try.
You can munch. Don't offend the chef here.
Ron, what was your prediction from last week? I'm trying to recall. It was close. It was closer than ours, I believe.
Well, I said at least 17. I was also saying I was being conservative. Mm-hmm. I would say that give or take those last special teams blunders that we had, I'd say that a lot of y'all's predictions would have been right on. So I'm just glad we pulled out the win. It was a little stressful at the end, and it was a fun game to watch. So,
well, Ron, thank you as always. Still got the pickles going here.
Absolutely.
For taking care of us like you do. Please, anybody that's in the Columbia area wants to come on down, hopefully we'll be here every week. Come and join us. Nice crowd tonight. Meet the Gamecock Central crew in person. let Ron critique your food. Bring your food in. Ron Aiken will critique it for you.
CJ said he's buying everyone drinks next week.
Well, we appreciate y'all coming here, and go Gamecocks.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Ron. All right, we're back, and we're back here, and we got Alyssa back, and we got Chris Clark back. And before me and Ron step away for a moment, we're going to leave it with Chris Clark and Alyssa Lang. There's a question I'll fire off to you that came in from the email. It's from our good buddy Elroy in Monk's Corner. Thank you, Elroy.
I like that guy.
How's your dog Astro, Elroy? He's got a question for you, Chris Clark. Will Braxton Barrows be a Gamecock? And did I say that right?
Braxton Berrios.
Berrios.
Yeah, Braxton, and that's just to give a little background, 4-star wide receiver from Raleigh, and he's made 3 official visits so far. South Carolina was actually this past weekend. He's also visited Oregon and Miami, which is sort of his childhood favorite. Got one coming up to Tennessee in early October, the weekend of the 5th, when they play Georgia. And, he's going to decide in mid-October. South Carolina was a big leader early in the process. He sort of opened things up, looked at some other schools and things like that. But South Carolina's definitely still got a chance to stay in the game, and I think he had a really good visit this past weekend. So that'll be something to watch going forward. They ate all the fried pickles almost.
That's why they told us to step away from the table so that we wouldn't get any, and so they could eat them all.
And CJ probably spit on the other one so he could eat them all. He's got them all over here. All right, this weekend, South Carolina's got a bye, of course, as we discussed. Alyssa, what game are you watching? Probably watching one tomorrow night, Clemson, NC State.
Yeah.
What else are you watching this weekend? Any that you sort of circled on your calendar?
Well, it's always nice to be able to have a weekend off because that means I can watch the Virginia Tech game if they're televised. To be honest, I didn't have the kind of hopes for this season as I did in the past, so I don't even know who they're playing. But it's always nice to watch my Hokies play, and I think, actually, I'm sorry, I do know who they're playing. They're playing Marshall, and they've got these awesome Under Armour camouflage helmets, which I'm really excited about. You know, girl statement here, the fashion. I got to talk about the fashion, but
That's right.
and then, of course, LSU Auburn. That's going to be a great game.
Yeah, Florida Tennessee is another one that I'm going to be watching. There's already been some things said by some Florida players towards Tennessee about their dominance, I guess you could say, over them recently. I know Steve Spurrier, of course, as he always does, got asked about his old Florida days on the teleconference today, and they touched on Tennessee a little bit there as well. So I think that's the game to watch going forward. We haven't really gotten into like the meat of the schedule, I guess, as far as teams that South Carolina is going to be watching going forward. Georgia, LSU later in the season, that's going to be a huge game. Georgia, Auburn, that's going to be a huge game because those have, big-time implications for South Carolina. I mean, they've got to, win out or otherwise do really well in the SEC slate this season, but they're also, of course, going to need some help from Georgia. Clemson, NC State's interesting Thursday night game. I don't think Clemson has been very good on Thursday nights. And also I saw a statistic that NC State has played, I think, 4 top 10 teams since 2006 in Carter Finley Stadium, and they've beaten all of them so far. They played 3. This will be the 4th. So they've gotten up for some of those big games, and I think the last one they played last year was Florida State, who was ranked in the top 5, and they beat Florida State, came back from 16-0, and NC State was not very good last year.
And didn't the Wolfpack Nation make Gamecock fans very happy? What was it, 2 years ago when they beat Clemson
I'm
in
hoping
Raleigh?
for a repeat.
I was going to say, Gamecock
Pack.
fans are like, all right, NC State, you know what to do. Do it again. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten up for that game, definitely. So I think that's one that I'm personally going to be watching. CJ, any other games you're watching? We talked about Florida, Tennessee. But, any particular one?
Since we got a break this week, a rare break in the season, I'm going to be down in Charleston. So I'll watch some games, dip in and out, but not really. The Florida-Tennessee is always usually a pretty good game. I don't see Tennessee winning. Florida is not much of an offensive juggernaut, though, so who knows? It might be a 9-6 ball game or 13-10. Well, it could be a 52-35. Who knows? But if I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet on a lot of offense.
And we have a question for Ron from Michael. He wants to know, will Stadnick still start if and when Waldrop returns?
That's actually an excellent question. Both players have different strengths. I think we've all been impressed with what we've seen from young Stadnick, as Coach Spurrier calls him. And I think the coaches have too. All fall camp, what we heard from Sean Elliott was that the gap between Cody Waldrop and Clayton Stadnick was wide. They were in love with everything that Cody Waldrop did, but I think everyone has been very impressed with his ability to pass block, especially. Cody Waldrop's just a big, thick guy. He's a run blocker first, and he's a tough kid. I don't know what to do there. Gosh, that's one of those questions where you come up and you hate to have to make that decision. You're happy with what you got. You're especially pleased with the way that the offense has performed and what he's been able to do. I think he graded out at 81%, 82%, which is terrific. Now, again, that was against Vanderbilt, I believe, right? That wasn't his Georgia grade, but still, you like what you see there, and I think you like what you see going forward. That's kind of the answer to that. Is they'll probably go back to Waldrop because he was the starter. You don't want to have a guy lose his job just because of an injury, but you feel great about the depth that you have at that position for a long time to come. So almost a win-win situation there with both of those guys.
Well, you know what? One thing I want to say is, isn't it funny how when you got brothers that come in, the Dixon brothers, it's the one that nobody thought about that's actually done better, outperformed, been more consistent. And then with the Stadnicks, one was more heralded than the other. You thought the other one was a throw-in, an afterthought. He's the one that contributes first.
You think of like Alshon Jeffrey and Shamir. Oh, never mind.
Well, that's not a good comparison. And what was up with that? Now, I was on the field. It looked like to me there was no need to jump. And then he jumped for no reason. And then when he did jump, he jumped too soon. And so he was on the way down when the ball was at his highest point. Wasn't he a pretty good basketball player?
Yeah. I mean, that was – everybody kept asking us, even though South Carolina had gotten production from, whether it was Nick Jones, Bruce Ellington, Shaq Rowland, everybody keeps asking us, when is Shamir Jeffrey going to get his chance? And then people ask about Kane Whitehurst, But, I mean, that's a natural thing to do because everybody wants to know, how is this guy going to get on the field? But, Shamir gets a chance, and then he doesn't make a routine catch. They ran that route several times against Vandy. Connor made a perfect throw. They just jumped too early. So, hopefully for Shamir, the next time he gets on the field and gets an opportunity, he can make the most of it, and then that way, he can continue getting the opportunities.
And there was a Quentin Smith sighting.
There was,
yeah.
K9.
Yeah.
Yep. Quentin was out there. He got the 10-yard holding penalty. They weren't very happy with him for that at all. But he did. He had a good game. And Demir Bird has been quiet this season early. I think he's got 3 catches so far.
He looked good on the sideline screens,
yeah,
in the first
he
half.
does. And everybody blocked well in the game, I think. But if I can't, I want to go back to Clayton real quick, though.
Yeah.
This guy, I mean, he is the biggest surprise of the season to me. Because, you remember he got replaced by Alan Knott, who was not only a true freshman, but a true freshman who had never played center in high school. He played tackle in high school. Most people thought he'd be a guard or center, but I think that was part motivation, part, Stadnick not playing very well in the preseason. But, you're right. CJ said, he was looked at as a throw-in for Brock, who was like 4-star guy who had offers from Florida and Auburn and all these other schools. And, Clayton had offers from some of the other schools as his brother. They're sort of a package deal. And Clayton, as a high school freshman, was like 180 pounds. He was a wide receiver. Wow. And so he gains a lot of weight so that he can move to the offensive line. He's not very tall. He's not the strongest kid, but he's pretty athletic. And not only did he play well, against Georgia, and, not only did he just sort of get in there and not mess up against Vandy and Georgia, he actually played really well. And to go from, losing your backup job to a true freshman to getting SEC O-line of the week in a few weeks is a pretty good accomplishment. So the offensive line on the whole, I don't know if it could be characterized as a surprise because everybody around the program told us it would be better this year, but they've really played well in the early going.
Yeah, and that center position was going to be the one that had the most scrutiny going in, and so to have that suddenly be thrust in the hands of a guy like Clayton Stadnick, who not people thought very much of. is just a really positive sign and a lot to be encouraged about. And one of the things that you hear about him was, and a lot of times you hear this with guys like you mentioned, that they come in a little bit less heralded, is they come in with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah,
and
everything
I've heard about him is that he works hard. He has embraced this opportunity. He's on campus now. The foot's in the door. And it's up to him in terms of how hard he works and what he makes of that opportunity. And here's just a guy who did it, who has done it so far. And now the results of that hard work are paying off. When that opportunity meets preparation, you have success.
Yeah, that's what I was about to bring up. We're getting cruising through the show here, and time's running really fast. Alyssa, what are some surprises and disappointment? Give me one surprise and one disappointment that you've witnessed this season so far.
I think the biggest surprise for me has just been the lack of, for a lack of a better word, oomph on defense. I came to this school.
No swagger.
No swagger, exactly. DJ's gone, and I just kind of assumed that someone would step up, and we touched on this earlier. There just isn't anyone that you look at as your stud on defense right now besides, Clowney skill-wise. But, to have a good defense, you need that guy who's walking around like he has a chip on his shoulder and that the world revolves around that defense and get out of my house. And I just, I said last week, growing up watching Bud Foster defense with Virginia Tech, I love to see a good defense. And, you don't want to see him on the field too long. But I guess that's my biggest surprise, is just that no one stepped up to fill those shoes, knowing that was a huge role to fill after DJ left.
So that's kind of a combo answer, surprise and disappointment.
True, yeah.
Ron Aiken, give us your surprise and disappointment.
Oh gosh, that's Elliott Fry. I'm going to go with that as my surprise. I had zero expectations for him, but beyond failure. What do you think of a guy that comes as a walk-on, out of Texas, and when you look at the guy, he's looks like a broomstick, and how can this guy have a strong leg, and what's his makeup going to be in under pressure situations on the road? And dang, if he hasn't just come out and done everything they've asked him to do from the field goal and PAT perspective, beyond missing the one, I think he's 11 for 12 so far this season, and 3 for 3 on field goal. So he's been a surprise, and so that's a check for the special teams in the positive side. And disappointments, I got to go with that defensive line. I just thought they would be dominating. I thought they were an elite unit in the country. That was just going to be able to tear up opposing offensive lines, Georgia's included. They got manhandled by Georgia's defensive front, and all of them seem to be nursing injuries and hobbling around. 3 of the 4, and Surratt has missed some time here and there in practice too. So, gosh, I expected a lot more out of them. Maybe they'll come around, but that's been a bit of a disappointment.
I would say my surprise. I could say surprise and disappointment would both be special teams, but, my surprise, I think I'd still have to go with Mike Davis. He looked outstanding in the spring. He looked great in preseason. Everybody knew he'd probably get the starting job. He's a top 65 prospect coming out of high school, showed flashes and everything. But that said, for him to come out, have 200-yard games, had 150 yards on the road against Georgia, 2 75-yard runs, had another outstanding game against Vanderbilt. I think he's a pleasant surprise. I guess I sort of cheated because I said earlier my biggest surprise was Clayton Stadnick, and he would probably get it over Mike. But Mike's definitely another one, just to throw another one in there. And disappointment, some of the issues that have happened on defense were sort of expected. As far as the linebackers struggling, I didn't really anticipate the secondary having a really bad game against Georgia like they did, but special teams overall would be the one. Haven't got a lot of production in the return game. They've struggled a little bit in coverage. They haven't given up any big plays in the return game, but they had those gaffes against Vanderbilt that were really costly. And if you make mistakes like that in close games, you're going to lose some. And fortunately, they didn't last week.
It's still amazing to me real quick that Mike Davis, with those 2 75-yard runs, that no other back in South Carolina history in their career has had 2 75 or longer runs, including George Rogers, including Harold Green, including Deuce Staley, including Marcus Lattimore, including a lot of really good names, and to do it in back-to-back games, it's important to step back and just look at just how impressive that is.
Yeah, and it wasn't against Alcorn State or anything either.
Yeah, North Carolina and Georgia, not bad.
My surprise, Nick Jones. you get to know these players. The photographers, we're around them a lot, and they're more than themselves. That sounds silly, but when they don't have a microphone or a video camera in their face, they get to be themselves. They get used to being around us because we're around them all the time. We're on the field all the time. When we do what we do, we're next to them. We're near them. And they see when they come in as freshmen. They see us in the spring. They see us on the sidelines. And you get a sense of who they are, personality-wise. Nick is a great kid. Oh, man, what a great guy. Always smiling, positive attitude. And to see him come out and do so well this season, I knew he had it in him, but, man, he's really doing the job. I mean, he's every time they counted on him and threw the ball his way, he performed. And that catch, the first TD catch, man, I was in the end zone there. That was awesome. That was a great throw, too. I mean, that's one of those things, if you're watching on TV, you're like, oh, no, double coverage. And then, he makes the amazing catch in the back of the end zone. My disappointment would be Vic Hampton, just because he's not out there. And when he's out there, he's not doing anything newsworthy. I mean, he's just there. And everybody counted on him and hyped him, and he had a little knee injury playing pickup basketball late July, scared everybody. A little concern that might have a lingering effect, but it's not health. I don't know if he's got it go between the ears. What's going on with him, Chris?
I think he's just been banged up, and Vic's Vic. I mean, he's a different cat, I mean, dude's down there. Ron saw it. He gave Ron a show on the field the other day. He's down there dancing around a little bit.
He's air conducting, just doing his thing and pretending to catch passes and running routes. And it was just, he's in his own little world.
That's what he does. But
he's the star of his own show.
You should see him at the student union walking around campus. That's entertaining. You want entertainment? Come around noon at Russell House. Yeah.
Well, there's some video of him from Busch Gardens on the bowl trip last year in the middle of the belly dancers, and I got some good pictures of him of that. And he put on a heck of a belly dancing show. Of course, he was studying them quite closely, standing behind them.
That's surprising to me. Yeah. Why would he do that?
He was paying attention to their moves.
Yeah. He asked one of the belly dancers for her phone number, and she shot him down.
Oh,
so.
That's harsh.
You didn't have to air that. Now, if any of his friends are listening, gosh, they're just like, dude, you got shot down by the belly dancer?
The video of him asking and getting shot down is still on Gamecock Central.
Oh, so if you want to check
I'm checking the archives.
That's going to be painful because Gamecock football players seldom get shot down by women.
You could make a little GIF, right? A little GIF file of the shoot down.
Yeah. MVP so far this season, Alyssa Lang. Who is yours?
I got to go with MVP as your guy who's most consistently performing, and that's got to be Mike Davis for me. You give him the ball. What's he averaging right now? 6-7 yards last time I checked. That's
7.5.
Yeah,
7.5.
7.6.
And he's just, every time he touches the ball, you're confident. You're confident in him. You want him right there on the goal line. You want him running the ball, and he's MVP because he's the most consistent.
I'm going to go with Connor Shaw.
Just
because I like what he's brought this final season. His steadiness, his leadership is what other players talk about. His commitment, his toughness. He did have the one fumble, but otherwise he's been very good at protecting the ball, especially for a guy that runs as much as he does, and passing the ball. We saw Dylan Thompson come in and give up an interception. They got run back to the one and kind of changed a little bit of the flavor of that game. That was, I think, at that point of the game was maybe when they were up 28-0, and they were driving down to really go ahead and just salt that thing away in a big way, and that kind of halted that. And so that's what turnovers do. And so I like Connor Shaw's preparedness. I like his numbers. I like his accuracy throwing the ball this season. I like his confidence, and I like his leadership.
Yeah, I've still got to go with Shaw. I mean, I'll go ahead and repeat yours. I mean, this looks like his team, offensively. With him being the senior, we see the lack of leadership on defense, but there is leadership on offense. There's a lot of veteran guys. Even the offensive linemen, they've taken a step forward. They've got some leaders on that group as well. And, Connor's been an outstanding leader. He's been so efficient. You mentioned one fumble, but other than that, he played outstanding. The play that he fumbled on, 95% of quarterbacks wouldn't have even made. It was fourth down play. He scrambled out, got the first down. He fumbled. So what? The offense played well enough against Georgia,
sure did.
To win that game. And, he's thrown the ball outstanding. The week after we hear Coach Spurrier say, Connor needs to throw the ball better, and he's staying in the pocket more, we hear that a lot, and then normally it's about the same. It is what it is at this point. He's a senior, but I mean, the way he threw the ball, he stood in the pocket every single time and delivered, and I thought, he was really outstanding. If he plays like that the rest of the year, this offense is going to have a chance to be extremely, extremely productive.
I was going to say Connor Shaw, but it's going to be a little redundant now, so I think my vote might be Patrick Fish. But wait a minute, they missed the PAT.
That's right.
Due to a bad snap, but the holder is supposed to make up for that. So scratch Patrick Fish. Patrick, if you're listening, I'm sorry, buddy. We're throwing you out the cooler here. I'm going to go with A.J. Can, just because linemen get no love. No love. And this guy, when you watch the video, after the play's over, the defensive linemen like to do pushing and shoving. This kid is always shoving back. Mm-hmm. He bows down to no one. Go back and watch the video. He's a man. And, when his daddy told me in the summer that he might go pro, I really didn't believe he was ready. Watching him the first 3 games, this kid, he's ready. He's a real man, and keep an eye out for A.J. Can the rest of the year.
Now, in the defense of Patrick Fish, I will say, if anyone is on Vine, Patrick Fish's Vines are perhaps the funniest things I have seen in my entire life.
But didn't they all get deleted?
I don't know, honestly.
He said on Twitter, because I do follow him there.
Did he delete them?
He said they accidentally got deleted. He was upset.
Accidentally.
But the one of him doing, what was that thing? The Harlem Shake.
Oh, my gosh.
Alternately disturbing and unbelievably
Where's Saturday
awesome.
Night Live to hire this kid?
We got 5 minutes left. And so throw out our last thing here with 5 minutes to go. We're going to go with the best play of the year. Alyssa, go ahead. Ladies first.
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. Well, gut reaction. Got to go with my MVP. Got to go with that Mike Davis 75-yard touchdown. That's beautiful.
Ron Aiken.
For some reason, you say best play, and the first thing that comes to my mind is that touchdown catch from Nick Jones. That was a heck of a play. The ball was in the air before he made the break on it. He broke to the corner of the end zone and it was an Ace Sanders-like grab where he just right on the fingertips and snagged it in and really inspired a lot of confidence in him. And it was an important touchdown in the course of that game when it happened. And so I'll go with that. I'll give Nick Jones a little love.
Those are both really good ones. Could definitely pick either one of those. I'll go with Connor's touchdown throw to Bruce Ellington against Vanderbilt, right in between 2 defenders. It was an unbelievable play. You throw it and you think it's either going to be picked or Bruce is going to get. It was really, really close. Almost looked like they could have called pass interference, but he dropped it right in. And Connor, he dropped several balls right in during that game, but that was a really impressive throw, I think. He
had Marino-like laser precision in that game. When they showed the behind the quarterback view, the on-field view of the replay, the guts it took to release the ball and throw it where he did, it dropped within a millimeter of the defender's head and right on point. And, of course, Ellington snagged it, took the hits like driving through the lanes, no big deal to him, and held on. So, I concur with that. But since you took that, I'll take Landon Ard's kicking out of bounds, start the game.
Dude, you're really ragging on the kickers today.
What about that 18-yard blast from off the foot of Tyler Hall?
You want to bring up any bad snaps, anything that you want to go over?
I want to say this real quick. These guys are like, all you do is a tee shot, okay? Mm-hmm. Your job is just to line it up and tee it off and hit it down the fairway. If that's all you do,
you had one job.
You got one job.
One job,
kick
man.
a ball. You can do it like. Well, we've seen some good kickers, so we know the difference between a good one and a suck-up. We'll come out first one, and he kick 150 balls a game, a practice. And look where he is now. That's all I'm going to say.
Drop the mic.
Tyler Hall needs to improve. There's no question about that. You need to be able to pin opponents deep. You need to be able to I feel like with a couple of Red Bulls, I can go out there and kick a ball 18 yards.
I got to bring up Red Bull. Larry Fedora apparently drinks 9 Red Bulls a game during the season.
A game?
A day.
A day.
So probably like 3 a game or something like that.
He won't make it to the end of the year.
I can't drink half of one without my heart feeling like it's going to explode.
9's unhealthy.
I did the math yesterday. I drink 6 a day.
You serious?
6 Red Bulls, but yours have vodka in it.
That's right.
That counts. Your heart really be racing on that,
Yeah.
big time.
Up or down, up or down, up or down. Pick one. Up or down, up or down. Okay, well, you know what? This has been the funnest show of the 3 so far. We hope everyone out there has listened and enjoyed this. We want to thank everybody for downloading it on iTunes and listening live. And the statistics show that more listeners are downloading it after the fact. I know it's hard for everybody with family and children and busy lives and work to listen to it live. So we're glad you're taking time to download it. Please continue to do so. We'll be back next week to preview the Central Florida game. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.